Wind danced across the rooftops, carrying the scent of early morning rain and the hush of a world still asleep. In the quiet sky, just before the sun stretched its golden fingers, a tiny speck of shimmering light zipped between clouds, its trail glimmering like silver thread unraveling across the stars. Wings no bigger than rose petals beat fast against the chilly breeze. The speck darted down, toward a small village where chimney smoke curled lazily and garden flowers nodded in their dreams. High above a crooked rooftop, the speck paused. A faint twinkle of light, barely visible, flickered from the chimney bricks. The fairy hovered, breath catching, hands trembling. Something about this house felt different. Not wrong, but final like the last note of a lullaby, sweet and soft and fading. Inside the house, a little girl's hand curled gently beneath her pillow, where a tiny tooth lay nestled in a folded leaf. Her bedroom, filled with paper stars and hand-painted clouds on the ceiling, shimmered faintly in the moonlight. A cracked music box stood on her windowsill, whispering a tune only the wind could hear. Everything inside was still. Everything outside was waiting. The fairy, whose name was Leora, closed her eyes. She felt the quiet pull of the child's hope, the soft weight of a promise made long ago. This was no ordinary delivery. And as she slipped silently through the crack in the window, the stars above blinked once like eyes that knew tonight would be her last. Leora hovered above the girl's pillow, her tiny hands pressed over her heart as she gazed down at the slumbering child. Her wings hummed softly, casting glimmers over the painted clouds and the night-kissed blanket. The little tooth, small and white like a seashell, lay hidden beneath the corner of a folded green leaf. Leora reached for it, but paused. Something about the moment tugged at her deeper than the usual rhythm of her work. She had made this journey for hundreds of years, visited thousands of pillows. But this house, this child, this night, held a silence that felt like goodbye. She fluttered lower and picked up the leaf. Tucked beneath it, the tooth gleamed with a soft glow just faint enough for a fairy to see. It wasn't only the light that made her pause, it was the story the tooth carried. All teeth carried stories, every one a memory, every one a piece of a child's life. This one held a memory that swirled with something tender and lonely. A bedtime wish whispered not to the moon, but to the fairy herself. Leora touched the tooth gently, and the memory opened. There was the little girl, younger than now, sitting in a blanket fort made from chairs and bedsheets, a flashlight under her chin. She had lost her first tooth and waited eagerly, staring at the window, whispering to the darkness. Her voice, too soft for grown-up ears, had called out for the tooth fairy to please come, please see her, please not forget. Leora had been there that night too. She always was. But tonight, the memory wrapped around her like a song she didn't want to end. The girl stirred in her sleep. Her name was Mira. Her dark curls framed her face like vines around a flower, and her fingers twitched as if she were dreaming of flying. On the wall above her bed, drawings hung in crooked lines, fairies, wings, stars, and tiny letters written in rainbow crayon. One drawing caught Leora's eye. It was newer than the others, a picture of a fairy, not just any fairy, but one with wings made of silver threads, holding a tiny lantern that sparkled. Leora. Mira had drawn her again. At the bottom, the words read, "Dear Tooth Fairy, please come one more time. I have something to tell you." Leora's wings slowed. No child had ever asked to speak to her before. No child had ever known she was truly listening. But Mira, gentle, dreaming Mira, had believed. Even when her friends at school said the fairy wasn't real, even when her last tooth wobbled and her mother smiled sadly, Mira had still left it under her pillow, wrapped in a leaf, just as she'd done every time before. The lantern at Leora's side glowed with a softer light now. Its flame was tied to her magic, to her task, and tonight, the light flickered faintly. Fairies like her were old, older than even the trees remembered, but each had a purpose, a path, and when the final delivery was made, the very last tooth, the last child who still believed that purpose, would quietly drift away, like dew at dawn. Leora landed gently on the pillow, beside Mira's tiny hand, and placed her fingers over the folded leaf again. She closed her eyes, letting her magic hum through her fingertips. With a shimmer and a soft pop, a single silver coin appeared beneath the leaf, warm with the glow of fairy light. But as she turned to go, the whisper stopped her. A whisper not from the wind, nor the memory, but from the dream. Inside Mira's dream, something stirred. Leora felt it a pulse, like a thread pulling her forward. It was rare, but not unheard of. Some dreams opened like doors if a fairy had left her heart too open. Tonight, Leora stepped through. The dream world bloomed around her. She stood in a meadow made of starlight, where flowers blinked and butterflies carried lanterns on their wings. Mira stood on a mossy path ahead, looking up with wide eyes. Though it was a dream, she saw Leora clearly. Her lips didn't move, but her thoughts reached out like songbirds flying. She had wanted to say thank you. For all the nights, for all the times Leora had come without being seen. She said she was almost too old now. Her friends didn't believe anymore. Her teeth were all grown. She didn't know if she would dream of fairies again, but she had drawn that last picture with hope. Hope that Leora might hear. The meadow shimmered with the softness of the moment. Leora stepped closer and raised her lantern. The light danced across Mira's face, touching her hair, her cheeks, her eyes full of quiet wonder. The fairy touched Mira's hand just for a moment and left behind the smallest warmth, like the last ray of sun before twilight. The dream began to fade. The stars in the meadow blinked out one by one. Mira's figure blurred like mist, and the path beneath their feet vanished into morning light. Leora blinked. She was back in the bedroom. The pillow beside her lay still. Outside the window, the sky had begun to glow, with the colors of dawn, soft pink, pale gold. Her wings drooped slightly. Her hands trembled again. She reached for her lantern. The flame was barely there. She had always known it would happen. One day, a fairy reaches her last delivery. Not because there were no more teeth, but because her heart had found the child who needed her most. After that, the magic changed. It didn't vanish, but it didn't stay either. Leora flew to the windowsill and turned back. Mira lay sleeping, peaceful and safe. The silver coin glowed gently beneath her pillow, and the room felt filled with a breathless peace, as if something wonderful had visited and left behind a hush of stardust. But just as Leora prepared to lift into the air, something shimmered in the corner of the room. The old music box, the one with the crack down the side, began to turn, slowly, creakingly. A soft tune rose from it, broken at first, then growing sweeter, clearer. It had not played in years, not since Mira's father had fixed it the day before he left, promising to come home soon. Leora paused. She touched her lantern, and a last flicker of light danced inside. Not the usual kind, but something older, deeper. It called her not to leave, not yet. She fluttered down to the music box and hovered near its lid. Beneath the wood, she could feel a memory stirring, not hers, not Mira's, but something still waiting. The music played on, and the wind outside seemed to listen. That's when she saw it. Tucked in the hollow beneath the box's lid, barely visible, was a folded piece of paper. Mira had written a letter, not to the fairy, but to her father. The words were crooked, uncertain, but full of hope. She had asked him if he was still watching, if he still remembered the bedtime stories, if he had wings like the fairies in her dreams, and if, just maybe, he could hear the music again too. Leora placed her hand on the box. The lantern at her side gave one last shimmer. Then, softly, the sky behind the window glowed brighter, the first ray of sun reaching the edge of Mira's bed. And the tooth fairy, wings glittering faintly, stepped back from the box with a heart fuller than ever before. She had delivered more than a coin tonight. She had carried belief and love and something beyond magic, something called remembering. And still, something whispered this journey was not quite over. Not yet. The sun's first light had not yet touched the rooftops when Leora hovered once more at the edge of the windowsill, her lantern dim. her wings slower than before. She should have flown away by now. The ritual was complete, the tooth collected, the coin left, the memory honored, but her feet would not lift, her wings would not carry her far. Something inside still called her back. The music box's gentle tune slowed, each note fading like mist. The letter beneath its lid pulsed with quiet hope, but also with sorrow. Leora could feel the weight of it, years of wondering, nights of dreams unanswered. Mira's words, written in careful curls and shaky lines, carried the ache of a question no child should hold for long. Why didn't he come back? Leora had never answered such a question before. Her magic was made for little things, coins, dreams, whispers in the dark. But this was something larger. This was a child's heart reaching into the quiet and asking for more than magic. She was asking for memory, for meaning, for connection. And Leora, though she was just a whisper in the world of humans, could not leave her unanswered. She flew down to the letter, the tips of her wings trembling. Her lantern flickered once, then again. There was a way, one last way, to offer more than gold. It was ancient, older than the fairy dust or the silver coins. A fairy could return a memory not just to the child, but to the one they longed for. But the cost was heavy. The cost was everything. Leora rested her hand on the folded paper. Inside her lantern, the final spark of her light danced, waiting for her choice. She thought of all the children she had visited, all the teeth she had carried away, each one holding laughter, tears, scraped knees, nighttime songs. She thought of Mira, with her stars on the ceiling, and her letters written in hope. She thought of the dream meadow, the whispered thank you. Then, she let the light go. The lantern pulsed with warmth, once, twice, and burst into a glowing mist, golden and silver and soft like feathers. It flowed from the lantern, poured over the letter, drifted through the cracks of the music box, and rose into the still air like a silent promise. The world seemed to pause. Every speck of magic Leora had left shimmered through the room, touching each of Mira's drawings, fluttering across her bed, spiraling into the paper stars above. Then it moved beyond the window, beyond the house, into the sky that waited to turn blue. Somewhere far away, a man stirred in his sleep. He did not know why, but he woke with the sound of a music box in his mind. The tune was broken, sweet, haunting. He sat up, blinking, heart pounding. In his hand, he found a folded piece of paper, soft and familiar, but he had never seen it before. He opened it, and as he read the words, he remembered. Not just the stories he used to tell, or the fairy wings he once drew for his daughter. He remembered the night he promised to fix the music box, the way she believed, so completely, in magic. The way she had waited for him to come home. He remembered, and the remembering cracked something open in his chest. Back in Mira's room, Leora could no longer feel her wings. Her feet touched the wooden floor gently, like petals settling on the earth. She was smaller now, dimmer. Her glow had faded, but her heart beat steady. She had made the choice. She had offered more than magic. She had answered a child's need, not with coins, but with a gift that could only come once. Then, something stirred. The music box, now still, gave one last note. The letter folded itself quietly and floated up to Mira's pillow, where it rested beside her hand. She stirred in her sleep again, as if touched by sunlight. A tiny smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Leora watched, quiet and still. She should have disappeared by now. All fairies did after their last delivery. But instead, she remained. Not glowing, not flying, but present. She looked at her reflection in the window pane. Her wings were gone. Her dress of silver threads now looked like morning fog. Her lantern was no more, but her eyes still held starlight. Then came the sound, a soft rustling, like leaves in the wind. From beyond the bedroom wall, through the window, through the waking air, a sound only fairies heard. A call, not an ending, but a beginning. Leora turned toward it. In the sky, a path was opening. Not of clouds or stars, but of memory. Of stories. A silver trail unwinding from the horizon like a ribbon. Other lights twinkled far along it, not stars, but others like her, fairies who had given their last gift, who had chosen something greater than vanishing. Leora stepped onto the sill. Her wings might have been gone, but her heart knew how to follow the path. The sky welcomed her not with silence, but with song. Below, Mira slept peacefully. In her dream, she stood again in the meadow of stars. But this time, her father stood beside her, hand in hand. The music played around them, and the sky above blinked with new wonder. She felt safe, seen, loved. Leora smiled once, gently. Then she stepped into the morning light. The sun climbed gently above the rooftops, spilling golden light across Mira's room. Her eyelids fluttered open to soft warmth and a faint echo of music that drifted away as quickly as it came. For a moment, she lay still, her hand resting beneath her pillow. Something felt different, not loud or sharp, but deep and calm, like the hush of falling snow. She reached under her pillow and found the silver coin. It was warm, not with heat, but with a kind of kindness, as if someone had held it with care before leaving it behind. Next to it, the folded letter she had written days ago sat untouched, yet somehow it felt touched. Mira sat up slowly and held the letter to her chest. The drawings on her wall fluttered slightly as a breeze passed through the open window. She didn't remember opening it, but she didn't question it either. The room was still, yet inside, she felt something blooming. Downstairs, her mother hummed a quiet tune as she prepared breakfast. Mira walked into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes, the silver coin clutched in her palm. She said nothing about the fairy, nothing about the letter. But her mother looked at her and paused. Something about her little girl seemed brighter. That day passed like any other. School, laughter, homework. But Mira kept the coin in her pocket. At recess, when a classmate teased another for believing in fairies, Mira just smiled and walked away. She didn't argue. She didn't need to. She knew. That night, when the stars blinked awake one by one, Mira placed the coin on her windowsill, not to trade it back, not to ask for more, just to say thank you. And somewhere, far above the clouds, a path of starlight wound through the sky. Leora walked gently along it, no longer a flicker in the night, but a thread in a greater story. Her wings were gone, yes, but in their place was something stronger. A light that came from within a quiet joy, a purpose fulfilled. Other figures joined her along the path. Older fairies, softer in shape but stronger in spirit, each having made their final journey, each holding their last memory close. They walked without speaking, for words were not needed. Every step they took hummed with the love they had left behind. Leora looked ahead. The starlight curved around a great tree, its trunk silver, its leaves glowing softly. It stood at the edge of the sky, where stories ended and new ones began. This was the tree of remembering, where all fairy paths led when their time was done. Leora stepped beneath its branches, and 1,000 leaves shimmered at her arrival. One leaf detached, drifting down gently into her hand. It glowed with Mira's story, her dreams, her drawings, her letter, her final belief. Leora smiled and placed the leaf among the others. The tree accepted it with a shimmer. The wind carried soft laughter through the branches, and for a moment, the entire sky seemed to breathe. Back in the village, Mira began to notice little things changing. The garden flowers bloomed brighter near her window. The music box, once silent, played again when she touched it, just once each day. Just a few notes, but always the same sweet tune. And one evening, her father called. He didn't say where he had been, or why it had taken so long, but he asked about her drawings, about her music box, about the fairy. And Mira knew he remembered. Years passed. Mira grew. She no longer placed teeth under her pillow, and she no longer drew fairies on her wall. But she kept the silver coin. She kept the music box. And every so often, she would find herself looking out her window just before dawn, as if waiting for a flicker of light on the horizon. One day, Mira had a daughter of her own. The girl was curious, full of questions, and loved bedtime stories. So Mira told her about a fairy named Leora, who once visited her in the night. A fairy who brought more than coins, a fairy who listened. Her daughter believed, just as she once had. She drew wings on her bedroom ceiling. She whispered wishes to the wind. And one day, she lost her first tooth. That night, Mira helped her place it under her pillow. Later, after her daughter had fallen asleep, Mira stood quietly at the window, holding the silver coin in her hand. She looked to the stars and smiled, not with sadness, but with joy. Because she knew somewhere out there, Leora's light still shimmered. Not in wings, not in lanterns, but in every story told, every memory held, every quiet moment of hope passed from one heart to another. The Tooth Fairy's last delivery had not been the end. It had been a beginning. And far beyond the edge of the sky, beneath the tree of remembering, a new leaf unfurled, soft, glowing, and full of wonder. It waited, because one day another story would arrive, another belief, another child whispering into the night, hoping someone was listening. And someone always would be.